Welcome to Yusuf Baig's talk show, and today we have author Monarose Pereira, also known as India's Enid Blyton. Welcome to Yusuf Baig's talk show, and today we have author Monarose Pereira, the India's Enid Blyton. I'm so glad to have you here, ma'am. I really can't say. I hope I can call you Mona, right?
Of course you can.
Wow, I'm
Nice
so
to be
glad.
on your show.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, it's after a long time I'm actually, putting this video. So,
Yes,
Mona, as I have heard a lot about you, your writing, and a lot, which you have done even in this pandemic right now. Let me
yes.
start with the first question which I have in my head. So, who actually, thought of your name, Mona? Who thought of it?
Actually, Mona Rose is the combination of my maternal grandmother and my paternal grandmother.
Okay.
So both the grandmothers are happy.
Okay. So, two
and
grandmas when they met and they chit
Yes,
chat.
and the middle name I've taken as my mother's name as a
Okay.
tribute to her.
Okay.
We always take our father's name. So
Oh
my
yeah.
father's name is the surname, and
Wow.
the mothers hardly get any credit. So I said that I'll take my mother's name as my second name
Okay.
as a writer,
Okay.
as a tribute to her.
Fantastic. So you were actually, I mean, I should not say you were sexist, but everybody takes father's name, but you took your mom's name. Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, we do not take our father's name. Catholics
Okay.
do not take their father's name.
Father's name.
They take a saint's name or something like that.
True.
So actually, I have another second name, but
Mhm.
I use my mother's first name as my second name.
Okay, okay. That's awesome. So Mona, you, if I'm not wrong, you are from Bandra, right? You're from the western
I
line.
am from Bandra. I am from Bandra.
Yeah, your name says a lot. It's very, very, very Bandra. Okay, so as you're from Bandra, you would have definitely, got your schooling done from Bandra itself, right? Anything you
No,
can actually think about?
I grew up in Chembur.
Oh, you're from
Yes,
Chembur. That's me. Oh, I'm from Chembur too.
yes, exactly, exactly. My father was working for ESO, which
Hmm.
is now Hindustan Petroleum,
Okay.
and we were staying in a lovely cottage belonging to the company, and
Wow.
we stayed there for a very long time. I grew up in Chembur. I studied in Chembur, and when my dad retired, then we moved to Bandra.
Okay, then you guys went to Bandra. So I think you can say you went to Bandra in 90s or 1980s somewhere. Where? When do you
Yeah,
think?
1980s. But my
Mhm.
father's family is from Bandra, so we visited Bandra quite often.
Okay, and you got back to Bandra. Which school is that? For 100%
Saint
Saint Anthony. I
Anthony,
knew it,
Saint
Saint
Anthony.
Anthony. I knew it. I've actually seen a lot of people coming from Saint Anthony. My own principal, uh,
Yeah.
my teachers, when in Srinanguru High School. I am from Srinanguru High School, so I knew
Uh-huh.
everybody used to say, "Where are you from?" I'm from Saint Anthony. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a clan. So let's start with your education. So I think your forte is you got into education because you like writing, you like English, you like the
Yes.
educational books, and you are into writing. So I've heard that you have written a lot of children's books, a lot of stories.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm.
I'm a feature writer,
Okay.
and I'm also a children's writer. And now I'm into teaching mass comm for graduates and postgraduates in various colleges. So
Wow.
it's kind of all connected. But it's very interesting because each has their own audience.
Hmm. So I think we have read the same Gouvelier's. If I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. We have heard this uh, uh, Guildlock, okay, and a lot of other stories, children's stories, if you're talking about, because I think children's stories has a lot to do with morals. They
Yes,
usually see, okay, how much of moral values will be able to add, because in pandemic, when you stayed home with your parents, a lot of morals they have understood,
yes,
okay, how much can be applied. But do you think, okay, whatever we read, it can be applied in the real life, or is that just written, just saying?
very much, very much. Not only the morals, it has a physiological and psychological benefit.
Okay.
Physiological because the process of reading
Mm-hmm.
kind of inspires you, and it also works on your brain cells.
Okay.
So your brain cells change, your nerve connections in the brain change, and it makes you more intelligent. So that way it is a physiological benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Psychological, it helps a great deal because when you read a book, you don't have any pictures in front of you except a few illustrations. Now, what happens is you imagine the entire story in your mind.
Okay.
You make up the costumes of the characters, you make up the characters, you don't know how they look. So, you make up the characters, you make up the background, you make up the scenery, you make up the music, you make up the costumes that the characters wear. So you are indirectly a director of that film. But if
Oh.
you watch it on a video, if you watch it in a film, it's a very passive medium because everything is given to you on a plate. You don't have anything to imagine. Whereas in reading, you imagine your own characters and you give them their costumes, their music, their language, how they look. And that is why it is a more active form of growth.
Okay.
Very interesting because most
Very
people look
interesting.
at stories as entertainment. It's not entertainment, it's a personality process, it's a growth process.
Okay. And I think there's a lot of pedagogy involved in this, right? There's a lot of things of, how you'll be able to teach somebody by stories. So, any specific story you have which is like apt today in this situation?
Yeah, I think all stories tell you something. But
Hmm.
what I like to say is that we all tell stories all the time, but we don't realize it.
Okay.
One, when we grow up, we are reading stories
Hmm.
or somebody is reading it to us.
Hmm.
When we go to school, we are learning stories about geography and history and various other subjects.
Hmm.
When we go to college, again, we are learning stories of various subjects, except that we look at it as because we are, it's an academic process, because there
Hmm.
is an exam, you don't consider it a story. Another important thing I have realized is that when I teach my BMM and postgrad students, if I tell them a story or an anecdote to
Hmm.
accompany what I'm teaching them, then they remember it better and they remember you also better. So
True.
while teaching, always use anecdotes from what is happening around you, from the newspapers. I always connect my lectures to the news through a story,
Okay.
and therefore they can remember it much better.
I agree.
So
I
we
agree. I
are
think
living with Yeah, we are
stories.
living with stories throughout our life. Our neighbor tells us a story. You come late to class, and what do? You tell your teacher a story. The bus was late, and there was a traffic jam. So we are always telling stories.
Dog ate my homework. Okay. So I mean, I think we have some stories which also gives you wrong teaching. This is just my I think we have
Yes,
this journey. Yes, Papa. Somebody told me that, Yusuf, it's like we are teaching lying. I mean, management
yes,
skills.
yes. In fact, most nursery rhymes have a double meaning.
Okay.
Most nursery rhymes have a double meaning,
Feeling
and
true.
which the children do not know. I just happened to read a book, and
Okay.
that's how for example, Gulliver's Travels. You just
True.
read it as Gulliver's Travels, but actually, it is the process of growing from a child. Everybody appears to you as a giant,
Oh,
right? And
wow.
then you move on to adulthood when everybody around you is a child. You have children by that time.
Wow.
So you move from being a giant to a small person, and from a small person, you again move to be a giant. So all stories have a kind of intricate meaning within them. And yes, we have stories which are not very good. If you look at our films, they are really giving you wrong messages.
I know.
They are
I know.
showing you item numbers and
Ah.
everything. But I think it is very important that parents discuss what they see on TV and video and movies with their children. That is very important for parents to discuss.
True.
And we just leave our children to grow on their own because the wife is working and the husband is working. So we
Mhm.
allow them to grow on our own. We just want them to get good grades. But that is not important. We need to concentrate on their personality as well.
I totally agree because I somewhere feel uh people have understood in this pandemic what is priority, what is required.
Exactly.
So all that, I'm not against capitalism, but definitely okay, to an extent that cloud we had, we are out of it, we are actually touching the ground now. So
How
the
we keep relations with our families, with our
Mhm,
friends.
mhm,
What new things can we think of doing?
mhm,
Otherwise, we go to work in the morning, then we come back
mhm,
and we have a dinner and we go to sleep. Now suddenly we're all at home and we
mhm.
have to find new things to do.
True.
So I think it's a very creative process where you look for new things to do. A lot of my students, though they studied mass comm and they can't get jobs now because of the pandemic, they've started their own business.
Wow.
So it has given people a chance to rethink. One of my students has started teaching Spanish. One of
Wow.
my students has started catering food. So I think it has given us a time to look at other options.
Totally. I completely agree with you. Okay, Mona, if I ask you, let's say, as you kept, you said a very good thing that, everything is stories, okay? And we are like among stories right now, and we say stories and we try to
We're
get it.
telling a story to each other right
Yeah,
now.
we're actually telling a story, a lot of stories to each other. Don't you feel that our education system should also try to push people into this open mic where people come up and speak and people come up and tell stories, because I think that is somewhere missing because of the technology we have right now.
I
People are into.
totally agree with you. The problem with our education system is we have too many students, 100 students in one class,
True.
and they have no time. They are just preparing for the exam.
Yes.
The exam is the ultimate motive of the teachers, of parents, we don't try to think that our children need to grow in a right way. So our studies are totally lacking because we have more students, but in many ways we can get them into doing activities. I send my graduate and postgraduate students out to do interviews.
Hmm.
I send them to Linking Road and tell them, ask people what difficulties they have at Linking Road, and they
Hmm.
come back so energized.
Hmm.
They're so excited because that makes them feel they are already journalists.
Wow.
And I tell them, get quotes from your other students in the college. And that makes them feel so happy that they have actually achieved and done something. So what we do is what we remember the best.
True, true. I completely agree with you, Mona. And as you know, we as we are at it right now with education system and CBSC and IBC, and I don't know how many BCs we have in the boards. Okay, we have different boards. Okay, I may be not that knowledgeable when it comes to board, but I think there is something called as being a facilitator. That's
Yes.
something which we have to do, because when you say stories, I also know that we should also direct something with our heads. So that's what book does, or books do to us.
Yes.
We try to read it, we try to make our own costume and characters and faces, and that is what is required. I think this goes with the news too. Don't you think news is like fed to us? Don't you
Very
think
much true.
yeah, it's fed,
Exactly.
it's fed.
Exactly. That's especially now with breaking news. Everybody wants to say that the first to give the news to you.
Yeah.
And each one is trying to compete with the other. So there's a lot of sensationalism that is
True.
part of the video, because each one tries to be better than the other for the TRPs, and the TRPs give you ads. So what
Yes.
I do is I try to make my students think for themselves. One of the
Good.
assignments I gave them was, ask your parents how they met and what was the first day like. And believe me, they were so embarrassed. I said,
I am
what's
embarrassed just
wrong?
to get that question. It
Yeah,
was a very good question. Ask my mom. For sure, I'm asking
they
tonight.
they were embarrassed and the parents were embarrassed. I said, tomorrow when you go out, into the world, you'll have much more embarrassing questions to ask. So finally, after 2, 3 weeks, they managed to break the ice, and I got such interesting stories from the students.
Wow.
One student's father actually committed suicide because the mother kept on saying no to him.
My gosh. Okay.
Of course, he survived. He survived. So now every time they fight, he says, I committed suicide for you, but what did you do for me? So she says, I gave you 2 children. So, so you see how it brings out interesting stories. Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you mean asking a wife, what did you do for me? So she says, I gave you 2 children. Can you give me 2 children?
Oh,
Can you give me
wow.
one child? So you know how you can break the ice and make it a very interesting lecture. And like that, I had so many other students coming up with their own stories. There's a
Okay.
mother who left staying abroad and came to India just because she liked her husband. And nobody really leaves, a
Abroad.
foreign country to come to
For
India.
sure. For
So
sure.
you have these interesting stories which the
Mhm.
students didn't even know. They didn't even think of asking.
My gosh.
So that's how you make your lecture interesting.
I can actually relate that because somewhere in my mind I feel the stories on the dinner table, lunch table, it's very important that parents sit and they talk to their kids and they try to uh,
Yes,
put that character building juices, okay, which comes from
yes,
stories of family issues, because definitely
yes,
every family has clashes. What have you learned from
yes,
it?
yes.
So I
But they
somewhere
don't
think
discuss the clashes. They don't
that's
discuss the clashes. Yes. And most of the time today, people eat at different times. In our times, we all ate together. But today, everybody comes home at different times. So everybody eats at different times. At our times, we had only one TV and only one show with Doordarshan. So we all sat together and watched whatever was presented. Today, you have so many channels. You have so many options. So everybody is watching a different channel. I interviewed a celebrity who had one TV for the father, one TV for the mother, one TV for the children, and one TV for the maid. So
wow.
each one is watching their own TV programs. What do you discuss?
Wow.
We are all separating. It's not a global village. We are all living separate lives.
I totally am with. I'll tell you. I even read once that dogs used to eat in those days. Okay, dogs used to eat what was made at home. That was their
Yes,
food. But now we have
yes.
dogs. Okay, coming with the new food they want.
Dogs, cats. There is special food for cats which you cannot give a dog.
Where
So
are
you see,
I?
yeah, yes, yes. I know people who've got cats and I gave them a dog food and they said, no, 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 this is for dogs. Cats can't eat it. So we are continuously learning, and
Seriously,
our lives are becoming, there's so much more opportunity to learn, but we are not learning.
I
We are
agree.
not looking out for opportunities to learn.
I totally
The-
understand. I'll tell you one
Yes,
more thing as we are talking about stories because this is very interesting. I'll tell you, we try to make education very complicated. Education is
yes, it is.
it's simple. Right now, you're talking to me like there are 10 points I have learned from you.
Yes,
It's that simple. I'm trying to like tell people it's not that hard. We don't have to have like certificates and all just to show one thing. I'm a graduate, something of that sort. Just saying, okay,
yeah.
people have it now. Just asking, how will you put emotions in in a non-living thing? Have you ever written a story where there are some emotions showed in non-living, like a robo, for example?
Yes, yes, I have written stories. But then, as we did in school, we have biography and we have autobiography,
Okay.
right? So
Mhm.
it's like writing an autobiography, and you actually make that object live, like a table that is walking on 4 legs, and then one leg gets broken. So what happens to that table?
Oh, wow.
You need to repair it, right? So what you connected to people who are disabled. I've one of some of my students went to various social groups, social organizations, and they
Mhm.
did a movie on the social organizations. So they came
Mhm.
up so
Mhm.
enriched. They said, "Ma'am,
Mhm.
every year we are going to go to that organization and
Mhm.
make those children happy for at least one day."
Okay.
So you touch people's lives, you give them projects, don't make them sit and mug up.
I totally am with you, because I somewhere feel, okay, that we have to start making kids feel that, it's easy. Let's go for it.
It is not
Yeah,
only easy, it is interesting.
it's interesting.
But yes, but the teacher is so burdened. So I think part of the responsibility lies with the parents. When they are teaching them, they should find out projects to connect with that subject,
True,
because
true.
they have 2 or 3 children at home, right? But the teacher has 100 students. So it is
Totally.
also the duty of the parents. Now, parents are sending their students for tutorials. So
That's
their
a
job
big
is done.
that's a big joke.
Yeah,
I mean, we are paying for education in college, lakhs, and then
yes,
we pay for tuitions. Will you please
tutorials,
explain what I
exactly.
mean? Yeah.
Yes, and we do not take any interest in their studies because they're going to school and they're going to tutorials. So
Tuition.
apna kaam ho gaya. So we need to take interest and responsibility with our children. We are leaving our children to mobile phones, to computers, to tutorial classes, to this, to that. But we are not taking interest in the students. How can parents neglect their students? Their role is more important than the teacher.
I totally believe in it, and I think it's a very good saying. It's just I forgot the saint's name. He said that a teacher's job is not to teach. A teacher's job is to ignite the fire of education.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is what happens when I send my students out to Linking Road to find out the problems of the people in Linking Road. They come back so excited because they did not know that there were problems at Linking Road. You
Wow.
have the traffic, you have the hawkers who have to pay haftas, you have the people who are crowded. Now, in the pandemic, of course, they can't go and do their projects. But what do the hawkers do? I told them, call up people, find out what are they doing during the pandemic. So you can make your education interesting if you want to.
True.
And if the class, I am teaching the postgraduate and graduate students, so we have very limited students because it's a specialization. But the parents who have school children and even college students, why don't you take interest in the subject?
True. True. I
Why
am
should
with
you
you.
feel embarrassed to tell your children why
Children.
how you met, what you wore, and what your at that time your proposal said to you, or you said to him? Why is it an embarrassing situation?
I
Why
think
wait for me
engineers
to give you an
especially.
assignment? You should have
Engineers,
discussed it with them before.
the engineers who are like, they have no partners. The one they should actually also try. Just a small, just okay, it was a joke. Okay, all engineers, I'm sorry, I know you guys are already depressed by a lot of things. So I don't want to add up to your, depression. So one last message before we end this show. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think people should go back to reading rather than listening to audio stories and video stories. They should go back to reading because it is not the entertainment value, it is
Mhm.
the change that it brings about in your brain cells, in your body, in your memory, in your thinking process, in your creativity. So please go back to reading books. It's a process of growth,
True.
physiologically and psychologically. So that
True.
is my message. Please go back to reading.
I think I am with you. I have one book out here which is about to be completed. Globalization speaks about,
I think we were more global in the olden days because we
true.
may not have connected to foreigners, but at least we connected to each other. Today we connect to people all over the world, but we don't connect to each other.
I totally agree. I mean, I think m- honestly, Mona, we need to have a part two for this. Believe me, it's very interesting. It's highly interesting to have
Very
a chat with you
interesting.
because it's
So
reality.
I
It's
have given
so
a
true.
lecture for 45 minutes at
Oh,
an institute. And they were like, wow, you spoke for 45 minutes. How did you get the content? I said, you just have to look around. Just think. We have stopped thinking, we just feed ourselves with information that comes on TV, on
mhm,
radio, on
mhm,
video,
true.
and all mobile phones. But we have stopped thinking.
I agree. I think we have to like start thinking right now, and that will start when we start reading. So
Yes,
thank
reading and
you.
observing, reading and observing.
Observing,
Look at the
observing,
fake news. Look
observing.
at the fake news that is going around. Everybody's just digesting it without even checking, though there are
Seriously.
websites where they can check whether the news is correct or fake.
I
So we
totally
need to
agree.
be alert, we need to observe, and we
Mhm.
need to read.
Perfect. Thank you, Mona ma'am.
Thank you so much. Nice being on your show. I watch your show regularly.
Thank you. It's really, an honor, for me. So, Mona ma'am, we'll definitely catch up. Have a nice day. Good night.